All right, Alpha Hunters Hump Day Wednesday. Hopefully, you're having a great Hump Day Wednesday yourself. And yeah, we're seeing some pretty good price action actually on the market today. We saw a pretty good gap down. Look at that. Ooh, look at that sucker. About a 0.9% gap down on the open. And the interesting kind of thing about that gap down, I'm going to zoom back out here. Looking at the end of last week, that's about where we kind of gapped down to. Not quite taking it out. Take a look at the cues here in a second. But first 10 minutes, we got below last week's low. So, yeah, not exactly the sign of confidence you want to see. And it's kind of something that we had talked about the two previous days. Like, hey, we got the gap up on Monday, so like the bullish like retest trade was kind of for the most part done. I think at that point you were just kind of waiting, and then yesterday, the thing that we saw by the end of the day is we had wound up fading a very small day. Like we didn't see a whole lot of price action on the day on the market on the SP 500, but we had that little rally that was going on while we were basically on the live stream and talking, and then we just kind of saw it fade throughout the rest of the day and kind of closed towards the lows. So it's kind of like, hey, that was not a bad time to maybe snag a bearish position or bearish trade. And then taking a look at the Qs, I mean, you can see the Qs here, huge move down. The SPY is currently down like 1.5%. I didn't mention that, but it's currently down about 1.5%. Qs gap down 1.4%. Woo, that is a brutal gap down. And you can see where the Qs kind of gap to today, right below the lows of last week. I mean, just below them. And you can see that first 10-minute little flush real quick, just flush out there. So, yeah, seeing some selling coming in. IWM kind of holding tough here. Actually, nice little strong pop there first 10 minutes. Currently down about 1/3%, 0.4%. So IWM's kind of hanging tough. We know about the rally that the IWM kind of had over the past 2 days. Yesterday actually ended up like 1.5% or so, I believe. Let me see. Not 1.5%, a little bit over 1%. I think maybe it was up about 1.5% towards the high. So, yeah, IWM looking somewhat decent today. I mean, not horrible. DIA getting hit also. So maybe UNH is also dropping off today. They also get hit with like a 0.45% gap down there. Okay, nice little bounce. Try to bounce there. All right. I think a lot of it's going to have to see where some of these look on the daily picture, because if we're breaking last week's low, we got to be looking for some support levels, really. That's kind of interesting here with the RSP. We actually did barely break Monday's low. I mean, just barely. When was that? About 45 minutes ago or so. And that's kind of where we bounced. Okay. All right, let's take a look at how these look on the daily. Daily, yeah, RSP, and that's always the tricky thing, man. When you get the pullback and you get the bounce off the pullback, and then you come back down and you take out the bounce pivot, that is never a good sign, because that means you're probably just going lower, unless you double bottom right there, which I don't know if we will, honestly, because the markets have been so hot. So basically what I'm talking about, when you get this bounce, right, and then you come back down, you take out this little bounce pivot, right? We've got this bounce pivot that we put in basically 2 days ago on Monday. We got the bounce. We were seeing it. It was pretty obvious right off some moving averages, right off of kind of like a previous pivot top. And we rolled over today on the RSP at least, and we took out that Monday low. So could the RSP go lower? Yes. I think it's going to be probably more indicative of probably the Qs and maybe where they get to. But the thing I'll say is I was really wanting to see it maybe back down around this 166 level to 165. I think that would be a really solid zone to probably be more bullish there. DIA. Yeah, the DIA, wanted to see it right at the level where it is now, just because of these kind of previous highs. You got this one back from mid-May. You also have this one for kind of late March. So I think anything in here where kind of it is now to this, from this 400 to about the 398 level, I think is going to be some pretty good buying action here on the Dow Jones, the DIA. So I think that one might be somewhat decent to be bullish on. IWM, one of the few ones that actually went and made a new trending high today, right? Because yeah, the RSP didn't get there. IWM is, yeah, I mean, definitely going to be the only one that took out yesterday's high. So even though the IWM is currently down 0.5%, I mean, it's still making higher highs and higher lows for now. Obviously, by the end of the day, it could be totally different and come back down, sell down. I'd be interested to see how this thing sets up. If we can just, if the IWM just goes sideways here for the next maybe day or two, I think you're just gonna be bullish on it. Honestly, I think that'll set up kind of nicely bullish. But I was also wanting it back down around these levels, so yeah, we'll see. The IWM making new highs today when nothing else really is. So that's kind of an interesting look there. All right, we'll check in on that one tomorrow. Qs. All right, Qs got to an interesting spot. Got to turn on long terms probably for the Qs here. Yep, breaking that 50 EMA is kind of where we gap to. Obviously, we flushed right below it. Yeah, easily took out that low from Friday. Retested into the moving averages on that bounce earlier this week. Yeah, easily. You know, probably that was the best time to be trying to go bearish, right? So we got this gap here that back from June that we are basically filling on the Qs. And just kind of thinking, like it's either we might bounce here for a little bit. I'd imagine a day selling probably done for the most part. I wouldn't doubt it if we see a little bounce action off the lows today, especially going to tomorrow, bounce a little bit higher tomorrow, retest into the 50 EMA, and then maybe roll over tomorrow and Friday, start to make a move back down to the 100 moving average and maybe even down to like this kind of little pivot level or maybe even this area. So anywhere between like, yeah, I guess like 460 to 448, which is, I mean, it's kind of a wide range there. I'd be a little bit better on getting price, but we have just some different levels out here, previous levels, and obviously you got the 100 moving average, which will definitely be a support because obviously we did kind of base there before. The thing I'll say about this time that we interacted with the 100 moving average back in April is we didn't kiss it perfectly, right? We didn't just come down to it and then bounce. Like we went a little bit below it, so maybe we come a little bit below it again, which then makes it kind of reasonable that we come down to maybe this level back here from late March. And but I don't think I would want to be bearish on the Qs here today anymore. I think probably most of that move's done. I mean, we're down 2.5% on the Qs. I mean, it's not. It doesn't go down much more than that. Too often, right? Too often. SPY, probably get rid of the long terms, but just a little bit under 530 on the 100. Also, we got this top back from late May, and this top back from late March, early April. So, yeah, anywhere from 530 to 525-ish. Probably going to be a pretty good buy zone. I think it's going to be really interesting to see. You know, obviously the SPY probably going lower. We're going to have we still have the 50 EMA to interact with, and we still have this open gap back here. So, where do the Qs get to? Where does the SPY get to? Obviously, the Qs are definitely leading in a big way in that bearish direction. Got to be mindful of the 50 EMA, and on the Qs, definitely need to be mindful of. I'd say probably just right here. I mean, obviously we got a little bit of consolidation here back from kind of like early June, this little top too. So the Qs can easily get down to those levels, down to like 460 while, the SPY kind of comes down to like the 50 EMA, maybe trades a little bit below it, that kind of thing. So the real interesting thing right now is we saw that stupidly strong move. I say stupidly strong. It was just a crazy strong move. Mid-June, mid-July, I knew my months, that it just absolutely just shredded higher, especially with the RSP and even on the IWM, just not doing anything for months and just absolutely went bonkers there for a bit. But now they're all kind of selling down. Q's is obviously leading, and that's the thing that we've talked about. Like when you get that change in leadership, that's typically when you're kind of at a more significant market top. Not saying like this is the very top of the market. We're going down 30, 35% or whatever, 40%, 70%, anything like that. I'm just saying like, hey, it's time to be a little bit protective here. And that's it. I think for now, I think you're just still being really protective. And we'll see how things set up later on. I think you're probably just finding some really decent zones to say, hey, maybe I'll layer back in and at some of these lower levels. VIX, I'll see the VIX bouncing up. This is really kind of the interesting look here on the VIX is, the VIX, nice bounce here, not taking out the highs from late last week on Friday. And the Qs and SPY are breaking down. Obviously, the RSP barely broke that down, but Qs and SPY are not. So Qs and SPY could definitely go lower before the VIX even takes out this top around 17 that I put in late last week. So could definitely see the market trade lower. DXY, dollar. So we had kind of that look that I was looking for, a little bit of a consolidation on Monday. Had that pop follow through. Tuesday higher. Would have liked to have seen it close a little bit higher. But we're coming back down today. My personal opinion, if you were snagging into the DXY yesterday, I would probably be moving up stop losses to basically 104 or just below these lows. Maybe like 103.9 or 0.95 or something like that. Because you were wanting to see that continuation. Or you're maybe even snagging bullish here. I mean, it still might set up choppy and go bullish, but I don't like how it immediately rolled over today. GLD. Looking pretty good. Looks like it got that pullback into early part of this, into last week, early part of this week. Looks somewhat decent. Starting to climb higher. 10-year yield dropping off. Ooh, rolling over. Nice little evening star kind of pattern here. Rolling, happening Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Okay. There better be a continuation down tomorrow, or maybe this thing just chops sideways. Moving averages come down, flatten out, and then it just pops out. Be curious to see how that sets up. 10 and 2 inversion. Look at that freaking climb. Wow, that is a climb. We haven't seen a climb like that in quite a while, going all the way back to January and October. Last time we saw some climbs like that. That is a pretty sharp climb there. So I'm going to take a look at 2 year. 2 year is dropping off pretty hard. Okay. And the 30 year is not really doing a whole lot. I mean, the 30 year could still continue to climb. It looks like it might be consolidating a little bit better than that 10 year. But that 2 year is dropping off so hard. HYG starting to look kind of impressive, actually. Nice little consolidation. Maybe these moving averages come up and they push it higher. I kind of like it. Another day of small, just indecision like that. I would kind of like it being bullish. LQD throwing a little bit of a lower wick. This all looks like a kind of a flag pattern now. And if it continues to base here, and then maybe start to push up here the next day or two, not too bad. TLT TLT. That's a tough one, man. I really just don't like how it didn't make a new high here over the past several weeks from like mid-late June high and the one that we kind of put in past 2 weeks. I really would have liked to have seen a new high there on the TLT. Kind of like how the LQD did, but the TLT did not. So that is kind of a tough one. I think you're probably just at a wait and see. Maybe if we get back below today's low, maybe you start to dip in bearish. But other than that, it's not a bad spot to be even bullish, honestly. Kind of a low risk spot. We've kind of bounced here before multiple times. Pivot levels, kind of the same zones. Not a bad spot to be bullish. Okay, S&P 500 sector rotation. Well, there's no rotation going on at all. Utilities leading the day, doing pretty good. Energies, real estate, healthcare, all outperforming as well. Materials, staples, financials, and industrials outperforming. Doing pretty good on the day. Okay. Communications, underperforming. Tech, underperforming. Discretionary, biggest underperformer on the day. If you want to know why, go take a look at TSLA. They did have earnings Tuesday evening. Intraday sector performance. Utilities, definitely leading. Seeing some pretty good buying there during the day. Real estate, healthcare, staples, energies, communications. Okay, communications actually doing pretty good, even though they got hit with a gap down. Materials and financials all outperforming. Industrials, discretionaries, and tech all underperforming intraday.